Happy Mushoku Mondays, everybody. Welcome back to yet another Trek the Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation novel series. We're on volume 23, chapter 5. And my gosh, 5 and 6 are a doozy. And yes, I have a lot of pages for these two chapters, so I don't even know what I'm going to do here. We're going to play it by ear. A couple people told me, don't worry if you have to do a single chapter kind of setup here, but we'll see. Honestly, most of the stuff that I want to talk about is in chapter 6, because 5 is kind of a build-up into 6, so it's kind of difficult not to do them together, but we'll see. We'll see how much I talk about 5. But yes, I'm glad that my fear of a plot hole didn't come to fruition. I knew. I mean, I had faith in Refugin. I was mostly joking in my last Mushoku Monday. I even titled it, What's the Plot Hole? Everybody's asking, what's the plot hole? I knew it wasn't going to be a plot hole, but there was still like question mark of like, is nobody going to bring this up? I understand why Rudius didn't bring it up, and they get into it here in a couple chapters here, is the idea of, well, I was thinking about a lot of things back then. Well, he wasn't really making very sound decisions back then, but still, it's like, is this going to be brought up? When is it going to be brought up? And they wait until the last second. They honestly wait until the last second, so it's kind of annoying. But no, these two chapters, I had massive anxiety. I don't think I've had this much anxiety for Mushoku Tensei reading through it than now. Like, I had physical anxiety from this whole moment, because it's like, there's so many things that can happen. Like, I was even predicting in the previous Mushoku Monday this idea of what if this is the point which, you know, the man god was setting up for, this is the moment to strike, because Rudius is using a lot of mana, and then the moment comes up and it's like, holy crap, what's happening? But I'm getting into it. We'll get into it as we get to it. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to cover both chapters, because it's a lot of pages. We'll see as we go. I don't want to rush things. At the same time, everybody's kind of being patient with me. Like, yeah, if you need to do a single chapter, that's fine. I don't want to push this too hard. But at the same time, most of what I want to talk about is in chapter 6. So it's kind of like they are probably going to nip it together. So we'll see as we go along, as usual. Thank you guys so much for dropping by for the premiere. Hey chat, hope you guys are doing well. Thank you guys so much for your support. Thank you for your kind words. Thank you for sharing out Mushoku Monday. Thank you for making Mushoku Monday what it is. I could not do this without you guys. Your guys' support is absolutely fantastic, and I cannot say it enough. I say it every single Mushoku Monday, not out of like requirement, just because I want people to know. I want to drill this into people's heads. I love you guys. You guys are so amazing. Thank you so much. But yes, greatly appreciate the support monetarily through Patreon, tips, links, super thanks, memberships. Thank you so much to Noah. Gave me a super last week. Thank you so much. Love it to death. Inferno Torch, just super chat after super chat. They gave us a new feature where we can actually set goals. And Inferno Torch is over here like, I'll just handle it myself. I got it. Here's one. Thank you so much, Inferno Torch. It means so much to me. Roy's with a super. Thank you so much. Orsted Cultist with a super. Thank you. Totally Not an Eel with 2 supers. Big supers. Thank you so much. Tristan with a super. Kusha with a super. Thank you, Kusha, as always. Sergio Donna with a super. And yes, Gearless with a massive super like always. Thank you so much, Gearless. It means so much to me. You're amazing. Thank you, everybody. Every single one of you. No matter how much the amount it is. Thank you. It means so much to me. But, with all that said, let's get into these two chapters. I wonder if the anxiety will come back to me, because I already know what happens. But my gosh, dude. Whew, my gut was turning the entire time. It was killing me. There's a side of me, I'm sorry, I'm going to say it. There's a side of me that's like, I don't want Nanahoshi to leave. Like, there's a side of me that almost, let's face it, just getting into Nanahoshi in general right here, because I think it's a good point to kind of open up with, and this might actually pad enough that I don't have to do chapter 6 for this one. I'm joking. Nanahoshi is a character that has always been fascinating in Mushoku Tensei, because I think it's so cool how she's the opposite. She's an opposite of Rudius. She doesn't want to be there. She was brought there. She was taken away from a life that she was enjoying seemingly, and now she's in this life where she doesn't want to be here, and she even feels like the world itself is rejecting her. It's not accepting her like Rudius. When Rudius came here, he didn't like that old world, wasn't happy. And so in this new life, he has a new chance of having a great new life. And so he's accepting it. And plus, he's bestowed with this factor, and it makes him stronger than most people. He's got some incredible power behind him. He's able to do incredible things and become strong and powerful. Nanahoshi leaves something behind that she likes, and then comes to this world, and she has nothing. And even so, the world itself rejects her in the idea that she has this poison that's building up inside of her, and the lack of mana is killing her. She doesn't have what the world itself typically equips people with. She's dying in this world. It's rejecting her. And at the same time, she wasn't given abilities or anything. She even thought about the idea of actually being strong, but she can't. She can't even be physically fit here. She can't be just a merchant. Again, everything is rejecting her. And so she wants to get back as soon as possible. So it's so cool having the two sides of them. Rudeus wants to be there, and she wants to get the hell out. And having that conversation here and there. Don't you want to go back with me? No, I'm going to stay here. I'm fine. Oh, you like this world? I don't like this world. I don't like this. But there's a side of me. There's almost a side of me that is kind of curious at the idea of her remaining here. One, because I like her character. Every time she comes up and it gets into story stuff, she always rips the world up. She does something to really screw up the world. And that's similar to Orsted. Every time Rudeus has a long conversation with Orsted, it turns into something crazy. Like something massive gets revealed about the past or something like that. Nanahoshi has a knack of doing that. Especially with that whole diary segment, the feature diary segment, really kind of going, holy crap, where are we going with this? like, what are these theories? Which part of this is true? Which part of this is actually going to be true and not just a hypothesis? But there's also a side of me that's almost wanting her to stay because it would be a really cool and interesting concept to get into. And the idea that unlike Rudeus, where she didn't want to be here, eventually she starts to want to be here. And it's really, yes, it's Rudeus. She likes Rudeus. Rudeus has protected her, saved her, helped her out, done so many things for her, has a connection to Rudeus that nobody else in this world has, that we know of so far. But additionally, there's Pedagoose, there's Orsted, there's these other people around her that she has formed bond with. And so you would think that at some point she's going to go, you know what? I don't want to leave Pedagoose. Pedagoose is my friend. I don't want to leave Orsted. Orsted's my friend. I don't want to leave Savaro. Savaro's my friend. I don't want to leave Rudeus. I don't want to leave Zenoba. I don't want to leave Cliff. I don't want to leave these new friends that I have. And yes, I have a bond with Rudeus's family. All these kids, they're so great. I don't want to leave them. I have my potato chips. I have my bath. I have all these things that I like from my other world. I have Aisha rice. Why do I have to leave? I've been so far away for so long. Do I need that old world? Is my possible boyfriend, does he matter that much? Does my parents matter that much? Did I have a really good bond with them? Do I have a stronger bond with them in my old life than I have with these new people that I've met here? Yes, she had a rocky start. But over time, she's gained so many bonds. And so you have that weight scale that's starting to be created between the two worlds. Do I really want to go back? It's an interesting question mark. I'm curious if... I doubt that we're going to get around into it. It doesn't seem like they're getting into it quite yet, but we'll see. Anyways, let's dive into it. Chapter 5, Teleportation Device to Another World. Here we go. In the 50th basement floor of the floating fortress, there was a wide entrance hall with a teleportation circle. While it was similar to other teleportation circles, something about it seemed off to Rudeus. First, it was enormous, probably 50 meters in diameter and a meter tall. It was composed of stone tablets, about a square meter in area, and 10 centimeters thick. At any given point, the circle had 10 of them stacked atop one another, and these comprised the outline of the circle. An enormous arc stretched over it, and the underside was etched with cramped markings. These presumably formed part of the magic circle. It was a remarkable three-dimensional magic circle, a magical device or apparatus. Pretty insane. Pretty insane. We're going like a Stargate or something like that. Cliff would be distraught if he saw this. Rudeus had gone back to retrieve Zenoba, since this involved magic circles. This was beyond something both he and Zenoba could draw. It would have been tough even for Roxy, who recently took up studying everything that she could about magic circles. Perhaps Cliff could, but he had no experience in something of this magnitude. A work of art. Pedagoose held his head high, as though he built it himself. Perhaps it wasn't entirely selfish. It must be very gratifying for someone you mentor to create a masterwork. Pedagoose was also probably involved in the design and construction. You had to assume that she didn't do this all alone. For sure, they were all involved. What say you, Orsted? This is a great deal of progress. I'm surprised. Orsted was back again, out of the blue, and Rudeus wasn't sure when he got there. This is like the third time in like the last few chapters that Rudeus keeps getting caught off guard by Orsted. It's starting to make me think that he's doing this on purpose. Like, is Orsted like hiding in Rudeus' shadow? Like just kind of emerging out of Rudeus' shadow, like, I don't know, reincarnated as a slime or something like that, or Shinobu? I don't know. It just seems like it's a little bit too specific. There's Orsted. Oh, there's Orsted. Like, he never mentions that Orsted comes with him. Maybe the fact that he's using this whole, like, helmet and covering up his cursed aura, Rudeus is, like, losing track of him. The three-dimensional magic circle was made up of about 25,000 stone tablets. Yeah, she didn't do this alone. I'm sorry, she did not do that. Because, I mean, it's been, like, what, a couple of years at this point? Yeah, she didn't make all those. This was something that even Orsted, in all of his lifetime, had never seen before. The automatons that the maniacal Dragon King left behind were made up of 50 parts at most, none of them terribly large. Nanahoshi built this magic circle, as if size limitations weren't a consideration. Oh yeah, because you got this big old room.
As I thought. Look up towards that arch. Is it part of it?
Yeah, this is the part where I kind of regret the fact that Orsted and Petagoost's voice are so similar. I've been trying to keep Petagoost more flowing and more quicker, whereas Orsted is more slower and drawn and more deep, but it's hard to kind of make them really distinct when you're jumping back and forth between them.
As I thought. Look up towards that arc. Is that part of it? Doesn't look connected. Oh, but it is. That is a device to confirm a successful teleportation. You are aware that teleportation circles leave trace amounts of mana behind after use, correct? Yes. Well, that changes based on type of teleportation circle. By measuring that mana, we can judge whether or not the teleportation to another world was a success. You can do that. To think the day would come where I would have something to teach such a scholar.
Petagoost is so puffing up right now. Petagoost is so puffing up right now.
You overestimate me. I have learned as much from you as I've offered. Platitudes. You knew it all from the moment I met you.
Again, that all depends on like how he gets that information. Is it just observing it, or is he learning it by observing it? I would assume he's learning by observing it through the mini loops, really what it is. Or again, and this is kind of getting my theory right here, Reese is noting Petagoost and Orsted were having a friendly chat. Petagoost sounded like he was smug over, finally one-upping Orsted, but Orsted sounded like he was reminiscing over old times, perhaps with just a hint of pain behind his voice. This is obviously indicating that, yes, the assumption here is that he probably learned a lot from Petagoost, and there might be the assumption that Petagoost might have that Orsted learned that stuff from him just by observing him or whatever, but it's probably previous loops, he was really close friends with Petagoost. Maybe several times, and then after a while, he just stopped. He just stopped getting close to people. At some point, even though he was making bonds here, made a bond here, at some point, seeing these people probably die on a regular basis or just leaving them behind and resetting, it's kind of like the whole ReZero concept with Subaru. Like making bonds with people and then reset, and then suddenly they look at you like you're a complete stranger. That's got to have a lot of effect on a person's mind. That's got to really mess with you. And yes, right here, I think Orsted is talking to Petagoost, probably going right back in one of those loops and having that familiarity with Petagoost and just making, again, right here, feeling nostalgic, reminiscing over times. And yes, it could be at some point in this loop, they made some kind of bond or hung out at some point. But I think overall, it's probably a lot to do with just, he probably was really good friends with Petagoost. And it creates that idea that he's probably in this loop at this point, and probably several times before in these loops, in the later part of them, at some point just probably not wanting to be friends with him. Like, purposely pushing back. Purposely keeping that distance from him. And that really sucks. It really sucks. And again, this could be another sign of one of the things that Rudius is changing. Whereas Orsted probably would never have this little chit-chat. Yes, this is partly because the two of them are helping Nanahoshi. Through Nanahoshi, they're making a bond right here. But I think a lot of it has to do with Rudius sort of opening that door for them. Trying to keep them more social, especially Orsted. Getting Orsted to be more social. And it's just happening right here naturally. Nanahoshi called out to Rudius before walking up to him. We're going to start off by sending simple stuff. Then we'll look at the mana traces from the teleportation circle to check for teleportation to the other world. If that works, we'll move on to teleporting live animals. And finally, me. Got it? Sure. But I don't want to cause another displacement incident, okay? It'll be fine. Trust me. We'll be fine. She repeated things. She repeated that things would be fine. Trust me. We'll be fine. Trust me. We'll be fine. Really? Hey, tell me that's going to be fine. It's like a moment to tell me it's going to be fine, right? She repeated that things would be fine, which wasn't comforting. She gave him a detailed report earlier, but the page count was so massive, he couldn't skim it. It was a comfort that Nanahoshi had run experiment after experiment to ensure another event didn't happen. Sylphia and Rudius even helped with a few of them. Yeah, and I think there's an aspect of Petagoost being involved as well. He would probably be able to see some signs there as well. But again, as we're kind of seeing, and at least what she sort of hypothesized before when he gave her the future diary, she hypothesized that that could probably be an aspect of time travel. Not necessarily transportation to another world, but time travel itself. Which again, I do kind of, personally, I feel like there's enough evidence, or at least speculation that have been built over the many volumes, that a lot of these things are kind of similar. A lot of these are kind of just comes down to the basic concept of transportation. It could be transportation through time, transportation from one place to another, transportation to you from another location, summoning, all these kind of things. Transportation to another world, all that kind of stuff. Are you sure? Very sure. Her resolve seemed firm enough. All right, let's do this. Right, first, we'll start with an apple. She picked up an apple from a basket in the corner, then climbed the apparatus, trotted to the middle, and placed an apple at the dead center. Lord Pedagus, if you please.
Very well.
Pedagus moved to the opposite side, while his servants spread around the perimeter, each one of them equal distance apart. Savral headed to the base of the arch. Rius, over here. Following Nanahoshi's direction, Rius stood opposite to Pedagus. There he saw two hand-shaped slots he supposed were for him. When I give the signal, start pumping in mana. As much as you can. Got it. Rius placed his hands inside. Something about it was strangely exciting. He looked back to Sylphie, who was staring in awe at the apparatus while talking to Zenoba. She had a passing knowledge of magic circles, so she must have been interested. Edis wasn't joining in on the conversation, instead confidently looking at the arch with her usual pose. Riz figured she liked big things. Behind her, Orsted stood stock still. This is like, I like a big thing. I could beat it. That's what it is. She's standing with her usual pose. I could beat it. I'd win. Can we kill it? Pedagus and his servants all placed their hands on the magic circle at once. The edge immediately began to flicker. The fine details of the edge of the circle lit up brightly, but the area near the center lay dark. Was it a failure? Rius. Right. Rius began pouring in mana. Suddenly his right arm felt glued to the apparatus. It felt like it was sucking a massive amount of mana. What he didn't understand was why it only came from his right hand. It was flowing from his left hand as well, but much weaker sensation. Was he supposed to strengthen the flow from his left? The moment that question crossed his mind, the amount of mana from his left was drastically increasing. Conversely, the amount from his right decreased. Right, left, right. The strength at which it sucked mana out switched back and forth. If he focused on the sensation, he could feel how much output of mana differed for each palm and fingertip. It didn't feel mechanical. He could feel something human in its extraction. Was Pedagus controlling it? His expression didn't show it, but Rius guessed there was more to his role than just booting up the thing. He was also directing the others. This magical machine wasn't automatic. Once it booted up, it needed to be operated. This is really cool because, yes, when this immediately came up, my brain started running. This whole segment, it's like every time there was a line, it was like, think about it, think about it, think about it, think about it. And I think right here, what was kind of jumping to my head the moment it was talking about this pulsing from each hand, yes, he's talking about it not being mechanical because, yes, there's like almost like a piston thought process there if it's like pistons that are kind of going off, which it could be. It could be this idea of creating basically an engine. Like she created an engine, something that has to pump that mana through because it's going to be a large amount. This isn't simply just having Rudius push it in. It's really an aspect of it has to be sucked out of him at a large magnitude. And yes, there's only so much that can go out of each hand. And it's kind of implying the idea that Pedagus himself is controlling that flow. And it could also make sense that there's a possibility that Pedagus is limiting how much comes out and trying to rotate it based on the idea of not being able to pull out too much at too rapid of a pace. That if he just pulled 100% flow out of those two hands right out of Rudius, it could possibly harm him. So he might be purposely doing it that way because it can help his body regenerate it, or not regenerate it, but kind of help it flow a little better and not just flood it out of him and make him lose consciousness. Give him that time for it to kind of flow through his body and get back to his hands. That was kind of my immediate thought when I read this. But yes, going into the idea that I'm kind of wondering if it's almost like she built it like an engine. The lines of the magic circle slowly came to life. It changed colors from blue to green, then to white, as its luminance overwhelmed the room. Soon, Ruiz couldn't keep his eyes open to it. Was it only the magic circle lighting the room like this? Ruiz had never seen anything like it. No, he had once. During the displacement incident. A very, very bright light. It's like immediately right there. It's like, crap. Here we go again. Here we go again. Blip. With that sound, the light vanished. Only the arch and the magic circle below it was dimly lighting the room. Pale blue specks were now flowing up from where the apple once was. It floated upwards before breezily vanishing into the air. Experiment succeeded, Savaro said. Nobody responded. Savaro continued her work, as if this was entirely normal. She wrote something down on a paper nearby. Nanahoshi then spoke up. We'll now analyze the residual mana in order to refine our accuracy towards the other world. We already have data on the subject, though, so I doubt it'll take too long. As Rius listened to Nanahoshi, he lifted his hands from the device. Rius, are you alright? The question made Rius recall the sensation of his mana being sucked away. That much with one activation in a mere minute or two. A few would drain him dry. I'm fine, but I can't handle many repeated performances. I see. Well, good job. We're planning to go on a pace of 1 activation every day or 2, so you can take a rest for the day. Yeah, I think the colors are kind of important. Obviously, the bright light that was similar to the displacement incident, I assume that's going to be the case because it's, again, a very significant amount of mana that's flowing here, and it's creating that massive amount of flow of something in a direction that it shouldn't go. Again, the displacement incident was kind of proven as being something of a massive transportation. A massive amount of mana was going off. And yes, kind of having that similar effect does kind of lean into the idea of the original theory of the idea of Rudius himself possibly being a catalyst for that entire thing happening. It waited for him to get that location. He has a massive mana pool. It takes that. Oh, we got it right here. Grab this. Boom. Displacement incident. That was that last part needed to make enough energy for this to happen. Now, again, there's still a theory that she came from another time period, and that's where the mana was used, and it was sent to there, and it never used his mana. It can go both ways. I don't know if you can really draw anything specifically from the blue light that's coming up from the circle. Obviously, this what they were talking about is that indication of where it's going. This is that residual mana, and we're going to see what color it is to kind of get an idea of where it's going. Question mark is how they know that. Like, do they normally send things to other worlds and they know exactly what color it's going to be if it goes to a specific location? That's a massive question mark there. But they obviously know somehow. And that can possibly just be from the color that typically happened when they were coming over from one of the other sides of the worlds, one of the other worlds from, the dragon world or whatever. They could have knowledge of travel between worlds long before this. Nanahoshi thanked them with a bow and then ran over to Petagoose. She took notes as she consulted with the research team. She was probably going to compile all the data into a report and apply them on the next experiment. The interworld teleportation system itself was functional. All that was left was to complete the arch, analyze traces, and slowly move objects more physical like Nanahoshi. These final stages were supposed to take around a month. Losing that much time with geese on the loose wasn't ideal, but it was what it was. Reese thought of it as starting from scratch, to make up for failing to make a firmer ally of Petagoose before. Yeah, it seems like after this whole thing, Petagoose is making a strong bond with Rudius. 2 weeks passed with commutes to the floating fortress to assist in the experiments. Reese exhausted a lot of mana, enough that he doubted that he could fully recover it all by the next day. He limited his daily mana use as much as possible, keeping it for the experiments, in case they were attacked unexpectedly. And again, I'm very surprised it didn't actually happen. I mean, it still technically can happen here, but yeah. Yeah, like I said, this entire time I'm thinking, yeah, he's going to get attacked. He's totally going to get attacked. With his decision to take it easy, things got a lot more laid back. He still had things to do. Speaking to Zenoba about the doll sales, Roxy about potential magic armor improvements, exchanging info with collaborators around the world via tablet, strategizing with Orsted about plans yet firmed up. He wasn't idle, but it was a walk in the park compared to the last year and a half. Since he wasn't traveling, he got to see the kids before they went to bed. He could talk about the day with Zenith, as she read his mind. It's so cool that that's now a thing. I think this is the first time that he's ever actually brought this up since that. It's crazy to think of how long ago it was when they were Millis, and this is the first time Maurice is really talking about the fact that he's conversing with Zenith. Talk about Cliff with Ellen Lace whenever she dropped by. Help teach Lotta to talk. Help Lucy with studies. Have Otis cry at him. And change Sieg's diapers. This must have been what it's like to be a chronic workaholic, taking the first extended vacation in years. And you're only doing it like towards the end of the night. Maurice was starting to understand why Orsted had been staying close to Soraya lately. There was times Rudius worried that he wasn't doing enough, but everyone needs a break. It made Rudius feel a breather was best to prepare for the coming challenges. Some bedtime delight would make days better, but he was a good boy. That's very interesting that he says Rudius was starting to understand why Orsted had been staying close to Soraya lately. Is he just implying like a joke there that he was taking a vacation? Like he's staying there to take a vacation, he's just been chilling out there, like similar to what Rudius is doing, kind of staying in this location? It seemed like a really odd statement, kind of implying this idea that Orsted was there for a reason. Again, I've always kind of speculated that Ors has been staying there to protect his children and protect his family while he's doing work for him. And that's where he built the office. A month passed, and the experiments came to an end. They all went smoothly as can be. As they progressed, they switched from fruits to live animals to larger ones, each requiring a readjustment of the magic circle. Eventually, they sent a horse, 3 times the size of Nanahoshi. They checked the results, registered by the Arch. It says the horse was sent to another world on a landmass between 10 to 30 meters above sea level. That was the target they were setting from their side. It wasn't like they could tell which nation's border they sent the horse to by the residual mana. The only setting from this world's magic circle that could apply to the other world, or whether the destination was sea or land, or how high up the destination was. Still, those settings alone really shrank the odds that you would die the instant you made it over. This is very interesting. Again, they're going to go back to the whole thing of like, how did Not that I wanted to get into massive details, but there is a side of me that's kind of curious of like, how do you know that? Like, how do you know that? Okay, I can assume the reason why they know, like, basically longitudes and latitudes, ups and downs, left and rights, and location is based on, okay, well, in this world, whenever we do ascending like that, we'll see this residual mana based on how high we do it. Like, I can send something from here to, I don't know, the Demon Continent, and if I send it to this certain altitude using these adjustments, the residual mana looks like this. That could be based, like, I can get those settings from that, but it's like based on if it's on land or not land. That's where it kind of gets in that weird area. But again, that could be the same thing. We sent it to a location that's above water here, and this is the color of the residual mana. Now we're sending it over to there, and we get that same effect. It's a trial and error. Again, Nanahoshi's been sitting here trial and error over and over and over and over again to get this information. It's very interesting. Poor horse, though. Just randomly out of nowhere. Again, I was saying this before, like, about, like, summoning, like, a random wing of an insect. It's like somebody's just, like, walking along, and all of a sudden this bug just falls, and it lost its wing. Like, there's no wing on it. And then it's the same thing here, sending it back over there. This person's, like, jogging, and then suddenly out of nowhere, a horse just appears in front of them, and they just get clotheslined by the horse. It's like, where the hell did this horse come from? While they called it the other world, they didn't know if it was the same one Nanahoshi and Ruyus knew. It was possible this other world simply resembled the one they knew. Even if it were their world, the vague settings still made it more likely than not the destination would be another country. That's the scary thing, and this is another part where it's like, I kind of wish she just stays here. Yes, I would assume the reason that she got the specific world is that through trial and error, like using summoning methods to pull from the other world, eventually they pulled an object from that world that looks like something of our world. Again, they were kind of going this whole process of like going into objects, object types, breeds, and then getting to specific breeds. Like we're talking about like a cat, which could be like a lion, it could be a house cat, and then trying to move on to specifics, a Siamese cat, specifically a certain breed of cat. And that would kind of narrow it down to, okay, well, I summoned enough things that I know is in from our other world. The bottle was a big one. A PET bottle. Specifically a bottle. Plastic bottle. That's very specific. And the idea of there being another world across all the many worlds that we don't even know how many there are in this particular universe of Mushoku Tensei, of all the possible universes and worlds, and parallel worlds or whatever, that there is another one that has a PET bottle. It's very specific. And again, they could do that with a lot of things that were invented in our world that are extremely unique. Extremely unique. Summon a camera. Specifically a Sony camera. Summon an LG monitor. Summon a PET bottle. Summon these very specific things that it's just very hard to imagine there was another world that is advanced specifically to this point and not advanced beyond that. And that's the interesting thing there. It can actually narrow it down really well. But yeah, there's still a chance. There's still a chance. But yeah, the problem is where are you going? That's the problem. And that makes me kind of wonder why they don't use a summoning instead of sending something and try to get something that will give an indication of where they're going. If we have the idea here that they're able to summon objects from another world and be able to narrow it down to a specific type to summon, and now they're sending things to a specific location, what's the chance they can't just kind of aim it to a specific location and summon something? And then keep summoning until hopefully they don't summon like the gut of somebody out of nowhere and kills them. But like summoning from different locations until eventually an object gets summoned over that maybe like turns out to be a mailbox from a specific apartment in Japan. And there's a Japanese name on it. And suddenly they go, there you go. That's specifically to around there. And then send close to that location. Summon from that location again to make sure there's nothing there, and then send that location. Like you're aiming the shot, basically. Okay, I'm getting way too into this. What's more is a journey home would be on foot. If someone were teleported along with plenty of food, water, gear, in exchange for money, then it'd be possible to reach Japan. But the journey would still be brutal. Yet Nanahoshi seemed willing to try. Her mind had been long since made up. Up next was the real deal. They set the final day to 3 days from now. This is where it starts to build up. This is where the anxiety starts building up. 2 days after the final experiment concluded, Nanahoshi came to Ruyus' house. I want to take a bath at your house one last time. Well, how about we have a going-away party while you're over? No, I'm fine. Rudius figured that she was finding an excuse, so he made the offer. Still, she disappeared in the bathroom alone. He didn't know what Nanahoshi wanted. Change the pace before the big day? Wanted to say goodbye? One final night of passion to remember this world by? If so, perhaps he could barge in the bathroom. No, it definitely wasn't that. That was just a fantasy provoked by Rudius' current abstinence. Gotta keep bringing up Rudius' horniness. Sylvie would get pissed if he actually did it. Yes. Oh my gosh, dude, yes. I made a joke on Discord. Somebody was asking, like, wrong answers as to what Nanahoshi whispered in Sylvie's ear. I'm like, probably whispered, I'm pregnant, and it's Rudius's, and then it just turns into, like, this massive, like, downhill spiral of Sylvie going nuts and getting captured by Petagoose, and then Rudius is being shunned by the public, and his entire family is being shunned by the public because Petagoose, this hero, has captured and imprisoned Sylvie for attacking one of his familiars. Sylvie would go nuts. Sylvie would go nuts for Nanahoshi doing something like that. You did what, Rudius? It'd be over. It'd be the feature diary over again. Sylvie would leave him. You thieving Neko. I'm taking Lucy and Siga, I'm out of here. She had been saying her goodbyes to all the people staying in Shiraya, so it made sense that she'd come over for the same reason. It was her final night in this world. She was choosing to spend it saying farewell to Rudius' family. Again, it's building up. It's building up. It's like, I don't want her to go. I don't want Nanahoshi to leave. And it almost feels like this is like all a build up to like her death or something like that because the machine messes up. She's sent off to who knows where. Just sent off into space. Just a vacuum of space and just dies. Like the slightest miscalculation. Like what all, again, it's like mind-boggling to think of just what all is required for this to work and just how much math and adjustments this all took, and one slight mis-etching on this one tablet. It's all wrong. The least he could do was say a quiet word to Aisha and Lilia, so they could whip up a feast. Something potato-heavy. Knowing was coming home today as well, so they'd send her off with a smile on her face. Hey now, get back here. I don't wanna. Rhea snapped back to reality. Lucy rushed in the living room naked and hopped onto his lap. Daddy, help me. Looks like a side quest had just been triggered. A naked young lady begging for rescue. To think little Lucy had become such a wicked girl. Still, a man who would refuse to help her would be no man at all. Stay behind me, miss. Be it the dragon god or the demon god. I beat the crap out of whoever dares to threaten you. Rudius, the monster appeared. A demon god with red hair. She was topless too. Abstinent Rudius' weakness. Critical hit. His hopes of victory grew dim. Rudius, catch Lucy for me. She's being fussy about taking a bath. Lucy? You were just saying that you needed one after working up a sweat from sword practice. Lucy was caught. A bath after exercise was necessary. I don't wanna. Red Mommy's too rough. Rough? Edis, I know I could take it, but you shouldn't be hitting the children. Rude. Of course I wasn't hitting them. Washing hair isn't my strong suit, that's all. Looking back to Lucy, she was puffing her cheeks, complaining that Red Mama made her eyes hurt when she washed her hair. It all made perfect sense now. He had to apologize for suspecting Edis would hit her. Then say it. It's like, what a nasty thing to assume or just say. It's a joke. All right, Lucy. How about we finally teach you how to wash your own hair all by yourself? Daddy won't. Okay. Cutting herself off, she went with Edis back to the bathroom. Maybe she just wanted you to wash her hair, Rudy. Yeah, maybe. Oof. That was an oof moment. She was just making an excuse to get you involved. Nanahoshi was taking a bath right now, so he couldn't possibly go in. It just hit me. Out of nowhere, it just kind of flies in here and just smacks me right in the face. Lucy's being a wingman. Lucy's being a wingman. She's like, this Nanahoshi girl, she likes Daddy. And I think Daddy likes this Nanahoshi girl. Daddy, I need help. Come wash my hair. Red Mommy too mean. Like, she's just playing it out like she's just all innocent. Like, Daddy, help me. All trying to set up for Nanahoshi. Damn, girl. That's the title for this episode. Lucy the Wingman. Anyways, that's right, though. He hadn't told Nanahoshi. Maybe there was time to barge in. No, she probably knew. The household had a custom for letting groups into the bathroom. It was too late to complain about people barging in. Roxy and Norm returned home sometime later, bringing Lotta into the bath with them. Nanahoshi, Edis, and Lucy stepped out to give them room. Emerging steaming hot. The long bath left them all bright red. Hey, Daddy, Miss Nanahoshi taught me how to wash my hair. Did she now? Thank you, Nanahoshi. You're very welcome. Nanahoshi being a mama. Nanahoshi being a mama. And this is where it's like, this is where it starts to hurt. Because like everything up until now has been that whole idea of like fear that it might go wrong. And again, that's still the aspect that nobody's bringing up the idea that she said before that she failed. Or well, the future diary, Oldius said that she was at that last final stage. They were there. That last one. And they did it. We're at that right now. We're at that right now. We got that last final one, and she tried it, and it failed. And then she gave up. And he didn't want to say what happened to her. But the assumption was that she ended it. Like, she couldn't live anymore. She couldn't get back on her feet. She ended it. That was the implication there. And yes, Nanahoshi was going this whole idea of, I think I'm stuck here. I think I have a purpose that I have to do. So the fact that nobody's bringing this up, or at least Nanahoshi's not, because I assume why Rudius is not bringing it up, because that dude was in some other place. His mind was thinking Man God and Orsted. That's all he cared about. But I was kind of assuming at some point Pegasus would brought it up, because I'm assuming Nanahoshi, well, again, they were in the floating fortress. Pegasus knows. Pegasus knows. He heard their conversation. Pegasus knows. Nanahoshi could have brought it up. Pegasus could have brought it up. And yes, even Orsted himself probably knows. I think they imply later on that Orsted knows. Why has nobody brought it up? Again, this fear starts building up right here. Why are we not addressing this? But right here, I'm obviously getting a little bit sad because, yeah, she's made a lot of bonds here, but this is where it starts to cement into, like, family. That she's here being welcomed into this group as a family member, and she's bonding with all of them. And it starts to hurt in that regard. That this is something that she's obviously hurting that she's going to have to leave behind. At this point, she's probably starting to hurt that she's going to have to leave everybody behind. This isn't, I'm going to go move down the street. This isn't I'm relocating to another country and I can just jump on a flight and come back and talk to you. I can pick up the phone and we're talking to each other. This is I'm leaving this world and I'm probably not going to be able to ever come back. Because once she gets back to their original world, they even talk about later on the idea of bringing scrolls and stuff. There's a chance that there's no way that she could ever produce mana to make a spell work. Like, even if she brought, like, mana gems and whatnot, like, maybe she gets a massive stock from Eloise, and she goes traveling over there, there's a chance that once she gets back to our world, those things are, like, just, they disintegrate. They turn into plastic. They just disappear. Who knows? She possibly will never, ever see Rudius, talk to Rudius ever again. So it's all hiding right here. Nanahoshi had taken care of Lucy, and probably got to talk to Edis too. They seemed pretty relaxed around one another. Baths were truly magnificent. Getting naked together is a first step to world peace. There's just something about Japanese baths. Finally, Sylphie and Rudius took Otis to the bath. After washing up, it was dinner time. Beef, vegetable, and rice. Potato chips and fries as well. The best kind of junk food. Nanahoshi was a bit of a wildflower, as compared to the chaos of his family. But she didn't hesitate to chow down on the spuds. Even though she could have all potatoes she wants when she returned home, Potato Girl had an appetite to be reckoned with. There's also an aspect here that, again, her body doesn't change. But I think they also basically imply the idea that she can't really gain weight or anything like that. And if that's the case, yeah, wolf it down like crazy right now, because once you get back home, you're not going to be able to do this without gaining weight. This food sure is delicious. They have rice in the Flying Fortress, don't they? Flying Fortress? I don't think he's ever called it Flying Fortress before. I'm not sure if that's a oopsie, 7 Cs. Yeah, but this rice is tastier. Maybe. It is now. Yeah, because it's Aisha rice. I don't know. This is one of those moments where it's like, you can probably read this too much in this, but she's saying yes, but this rice is tastier. Maybe. Yes, I'm assuming Aisha rice is better. I mean, given Rudius mentioned the idea. I mean, yes, they had rice brought to them, or they made rice up there or something with the fish and everything like that. It's going to be rice from somewhere else, really, is what it's going to be. They're not going to know how to make it right. Aisha has been molding it around Rudius' guidance. So I don't think that would ever be Aisha rice. So if it fits Rudius more, it's going to fit Nanahoshi. But it's sort of also kind of maybe possibly indicating this idea of, why is it tastier? Because she's partaking it with family. It's always tastier with people that you want to be around. Sappy crap. The food sure is delicious. Their rice was Shariah grown Aisha rice. Maybe Rudius could brand it Hot Maid or something. Ah, as he thought. A virgin maid, still in her teens, tilling rice patties, using beefy muscled men that she hired. To create my own personal delicacy. What else could satisfy a Japanese appetite? So stupid. His very own personal Aisha rice. Rudius then cut in as she was digging in. Hey now, This is the last of this world's food that you'll be able to eat. Make sure to chew it, okay? Are you my mother or something? After snapping back, Nanahoshi ate in silence for a bit. This girl woofing it down. Don't forget between a girl and her food, man. Her gaze eventually settled on Maurice's family. Lucy was animated as she chattered about her recent escapades, while Norn listened on. Roxy talked to Sylphie about everything related to magic circles. Edis fed Lotta, Aisha fed Otis, and Lilia and Zenith watched over them. It was a livelier sight than the old Brutus could have ever imagined. Nanahoshi watched it all. It must have reminded her of her own family. That's great, because when I'm reading this whole segment, it's like she wants a family. Like that's like the biggest upset about this whole situation is the idea that right now here she's forming bonds. Again, she's formed a bond with Petagus, Orsted, Zenoba, Cliff, Rudius, and yes, Rudius' family. And there's almost a sense here where she's liking the people that she's around. She's surrounded by a family and she's feeling that warmth. And this is going to be something that's going to be very difficult for her to leave. But it also adds to that anxiety of wanting to go back. That's just like before, where it almost felt like giving her something that she wanted was almost hurting her. Let's make a big Japanese meal for her. And what does it do? It makes her more homesick. Again, Rudius making all those potato chips and everything for her originally. She was eating all this food from back in Japan. It was making her more homesick. And then when the failures happened with the summoning and everything, it wrecked her. I want this so bad. Thank you for giving it to me, but it's making it hurt more. Nanahoshi, there's a good chance that Nanahoshi can't get pregnant. Even if she wanted to stay here, there's a good chance she can't have a child. She can't have a family here. And one of the things that she kept pushing back on Rudius is how he was enjoying his time here and he was having a family here and he's having kids. And there's almost a sense that Nanahoshi was pushing back on that out of immaturity. But it's probably a good chance that she's pushing back on it because she can't have it. In a lot of cases, when you can't have something, you often resort to lashing out and rejecting it. She's looking at a great family that Rudius has built in this new world. They're both the same. They were both brought here, yes, under different conditions and different current statuses. But Rudius has formed a family, and she rejected that idea. But it could be possibly because she wants it too. And she knows if she stays here, she'll never have that. Rudius showed me what great thing a family is, and I can never have that. Because my body isn't functioning normally. It's suspended in time. She doesn't even have a cycle. She doesn't even know what's working down there. Right here, there's a sense of her seeing a family and being warm and it being so great. There's also a pain behind that. And I think she feels that pain. This is solidifying. It's almost like, at initial thought, when I read this whole segment, I'm thinking, this is going to make it hard for her to leave. No, this is making it easier for her to leave. In a sense. She wants a family. But anyways. Oh, this whole segment. Like, again, these two chapters, I knew when I read through them, I'm like, this is gonna be a long set of Mushoku Mondays, if not just one. But no, it's cool right here. Roxy talking to Sylphie about magic circles. Again, it kind of gave that sense that obviously Roxy right now is studying the magic circles because she wants to make this be a thing that she can help Rudius with the magic armor. But it almost gives you a sense right here and in that previous scene with them doing the whole transportation that maybe Sylphie right now is getting more interested in this stuff because she might want to help Roxy, assist Roxy and Zenoba and all them in helping the armor too. I'm here, I might as well work on this. Or just in general, just to have the concept of magic circles for doing other things. There might be a time where she needs a magic circle for something. That's cool. Edda's feeding Lotta. That's cute. I want a picture. Aisha feeding Otis. Lilia and Zenith watching over them. Just the mamas. This is the grandmas over there just watching the family. Super cute. Super cute. But yes, there's the other side of it. This could just be simply reminding her of her old family. My brother, who I got so mad at for stealing my pudding. I wish I could do that again. If I can get mad again, I'd be so happy. That part crushed me so bad when she mentioned that. He used to steal my pudding. I used to get so mad at him. I wish he'd steal my pudding again. So that at least I can see him again. Oh my gosh, I'm getting... I just came out of nowhere, sorry. I wish I could do it so I could see him again. It's like my dad. I think about all the times that I got mad at my dad, and it's like I would just love to be mad at him again. I'd give anything to be mad at him again. Anybody that has ever had a family member get lost or disappears or whatever, wish I could be mad at them again. That's something. Dinner drew closed. Dinner drew to a close, and Nanahoshi played with the children for a little bit. Lucy warmed up to Nanahoshi quickly, probably because their earlier bath hangout. Otis spent a little time burying his face in Nanahoshi's breast and was grinning as a result. Lada was, well, same as always. Lada was Lada. Lada was Lada. I have to admit, I'm getting kind of tired of the whole, like, Otis is obsessed with breast thing. Again, it kind of puts it a little bit too much into... I mean, I've seen kids that get a little goofy about that kind of stuff, but not this much. Like, they're just putting way too much emphasis on it, that the idea of Otis possibly being an isekai like Rudius. I mean, he's already gone through the whole process of saying, though, I've done these tests and it didn't seem to work out. But, I mean, he could be from another universe. Not ours. After Nanahoshi took Sylphie up on an offer to stay the night, it came to an end. Unfortunately, their one-time guest room was now full of kids. With no place for her to sleep, they eventually lent her Sylphie's room. Yeah, it's like Sylphie offered her the place to stay. Oh, crap, we don't have a guest room. I guess you're going to take my bedroom because I offered you. Which, that's funny because when Rudius first got this house, he's all talking about how this is a huge house. This place has way too many rooms. And now he's got no room for a guest. Like, we've gotten to that point where we have way too many people in this house now. Rudius is going to have to do an extension. Like, he's going to have to build an extension on the house. He's going to have to call up that dwarf guy to come in and do an extension. That night, Rudius talked to Nanahoshi. The house was quiet, and everyone was sound asleep. They sat face to face in the living room, only lit by the fireplace and sipping wine. They kept it light. Pedagogue's hobbies, how devoted Savaro was, stuff like that. How Orsted and Pedagogue weren't on great terms, but seemed to acknowledge one another. Could totally see that. Totally see that. And again, I think a lot of that has to do with that. I think that Orsted is just going to, no matter what, have a subconscious, like, familiarity there. It's just so easy for him to talk to Pedagogue. He just has to talk to him. And they're the same kin, even if they have different goals and whatnot. And again, I still believe that a lot of that disconnection that Orsted has with Pedagogue is in the idea that he's going to have to eventually kill him. It probably came to the point where he finally learned about how to make that key, that he realized, if I'm going to pull that off when the time comes, I can't get close to him. In the middle of the light conversation, Nanahoshi shifted to something more serious. Rudius, you've really grown into a fine man. Have I? You were like a grade schooler kid when I first met you. The next time I saw you, you were sort of a middle schooler. There was a time when I thought you were younger than me. But now, you're a real adult. You're married with kids and all that. Come on, those things don't make someone an adult. Reese really didn't get all that child this, adult that stuff. He'd been an overgrown child in his previous life, and been fully grown. Yeah, I agree there. That's sort of something I get in a discussion with people a lot, is that idea of what makes a person an adult. And I think, like, standard, like, traditional thought process for a lot of people is that you're not a grown man until you have a child. You're not a grown man until you have raised a family. You're not a grown man until you get an adult. You're not a grown man until you had sex. You're not a grown man until you do this. You're not a grown man until you do that. All these things that classify what people think are mature and fully grown. And Reese right here is kind of acknowledging the idea that I don't really believe in that stuff because there's a break that sort of happens. Like, traditions and what sort of form a person isn't always the same. And even for him, acknowledging what I've said several times before, and I think it's probably planted because he kind of acknowledged it himself. Reese has said it in so many words without saying it directly. He was a man-child. Even though he was as old as he was, he can acknowledge that thought process is flawed. I was a man-child. I don't believe in this whole idea of when you grow up. And just because you plug out a kid doesn't make you mature. There's a lot of people that have kids and they are just not... A lot of cases, people have children and they're not ready for it. A lot of cases, people have children not ready for it and they still pull it off. My point is that I've seen way too many immature fathers. Way too many immature mothers. Way too many dumb parents. But yes, it's a strong comparison here against the opposite what we were talking about in the previous chapter. And the idea that when Nanahoshi walks in that room, we get that picture of, like, here's this girl that has been the same from the moment I arrived in this world and all the way until now. She's always been the same. Here's the opposite. From her perspective, Reese has grown, become an adult. Nanahoshi had changed plenty from how she used to be. Before, she hadn't let people get close to her. She was the invincible Silent 7-star. I wonder if that's supposed to be invisible. I mean, it could be invincible, because Silent 7-star was this incredible person that was doing some crazy stuff. Which I agree. Fully agree here. How much Nanahoshi has changed is insane. But again, a lot of that has to do with the fact that she was rejected by the world. When she first got there, she couldn't talk to anybody. She was isolated. Thankfully, Orsa came across her, helped her out, gave her guidance, gave her protection. And she still kind of isolated herself because she didn't want to get involved with anybody here. She didn't want to bond with people. She wasn't going to be here long. I don't want to be here long. I hate this world. I want to get out of here. And Rudius has slowly pulled her out of that room. Come out here. Come out here. You're gonna meet Cliff. Right here's Zenoba. You're gonna meet all these people. Come here. Come here. You're still coming out here. He just clawed her out of there. Just clawed her out of there. And again, it's just through being there for her. Being there for her when she was at her darkest moment. When she was giving up on everything. Being there for her. The old Nanahoshi wouldn't have played with my kids. Maybe. But part of that was because you helped me. Until then, I didn't feel any urge to get involved with other people of this world. Would you have looked after toddlers in your old world? Probably, no. I guess I would have thought that they were getting in the way of my studies. Entrance exams were coming up at the time. Hearing about entrance exams and tests was nostalgic. But that's interesting right there. Acknowledging the idea that there's a chance that in her previous life, at this particular moment, she probably wouldn't have been... I guess they're trying to establish this idea that it's only because you were here. Because you came here and you felt isolated, that's why you wouldn't look after them. I didn't change anything. And she's kind of saying, no, you didn't really change anything because I was kind of that way before, but that was because studies. Rias didn't just equalize her from her previous self, really is what it's pointing out here. He didn't just equalize her back to normal by pulling her out of that shell. He kind of showed her a little more there. I wonder how many years has passed over there. I don't want to think about it. Oh, sorry. This is something we're not wanting to talk about. We're not trying to think that. It had been about 15 years since she came here. If 15 passed over there, it would be like Urashima Taro folktales. Maybe Nanahoshi would instantly age 15 years the moment she went back. That's another way of putting it. I mean, that is another way of putting it. But no, I mean, this is a question mark that I've had for the longest time, is like, what is that difference there? And again, I think the big breaking point is the fact that Rudius came there. Like, from our perspective, we go, traffic accident, gets hit by the truck, zoop, born into this world. And then cut forward, Rudius is over there with Edis, and then suddenly, finally, Nanahoshi's here, and she still has her old body. Like, she hasn't changed at all. Like, there's so many variables here that it kind of gives this kind of distortion as to time. Like, is it because they both left our world at the same time and shot over here, and then suddenly over time, oh, she kind of falls behind her in the path. Rudius gets her first, and then finally she arrives for some reason, and our old world just kind of continued that time period. Then there's the other thought that I had, is that if time flows possibly slower on our side here versus Mushoku Tensei world, time is going by really quickly. Yes, when the truck hits Rudius, sends him, a lot of time span goes by before the truck hits Nanahoshi. But again, the thought process there is that Rudius was crushed by the truck. Nanahoshi was just transported. It implied that she didn't get hit by the truck. Rudius is in great detail about the fact that his body is crushed. He's taken to the hospital. He's dead. Nanahoshi, her body left that world. There's so many variables here that you just can't really plainly say they just both had a circle come up from beneath them and they both came here at the same time. And then getting into the theory again that Nanahoshi was sent from the future. And yeah, we're technically getting into a lot of that stuff later on. Honestly, I get the feeling that not a lot of time passed over there. Why is that? Rudius explained his tipsy. I had to make sure I put this line in here because I was going to delete it because it's just kind of a throwing in there kind of thing. No, it's saying specifically tipsy. Oops. You and I got hit by that truck on the same day, right? Oops. Oops. Just oops. Just oops. Oh, I love it. Something he has been trying so hard to keep under wraps for so long. There's like almost a side of it that's like, whatever, she's living here. I can tell her everything. Let me just tell her everything. Let me tell her all my dark secrets because she's leaving anyways. Which it makes sense again. It's implying here that he says it because he's tipsy, but at the same time, he had those letters wrote. He knew this is coming. He knew that she's going to find out eventually. You and I got hit by that truck on the same day, right? But I got this world nearly 10 years earlier. Maybe time flows differently between here and there. You'll be fine. I bet. Huh. You think so? Nanahoshi looked for a moment, like she was thinking about something. You don't say. Like, I can imagine Nanahoshi's like, oh, so who are you? Wait, hold on a second. What do you mean when you say that we got hit by the truck on the same day? Oops, Ria's thought. Are you saying you were there? Well, hold on. Wait, I need a minute. Nanahoshi pressed her finger to her temple and closed her eyes, as though trying hard to remember. Suddenly, her face shot back up. That fatso! Ouch! 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 You guys having a mental image of that. Abunayo! Chunky Rudy is running over after them. That fatso! What have I done? Rudius thought. It must have been the alcohol. And he'd been so careful all this time. Also, it was rude to be called a fatso. Well, he may have been fat, but still. Whew, so that was it. That was you. To think that dude turned to Rudius. Wait, so you actually turned out hot, huh? Nanahoshi put her hand to her chin, as her eyes opened wide. She was wide awake now. He figured she'd be disgusted. And now, she seemed kind of happy. Pardon, Miss Nanahoshi. That is kind of an interesting thing. I don't think I noticed that the first time I read this. Like, it feels kind of nasty. The idea is she's like, oh my gosh, that fatso. I think there's a lot in here you can read in here. That fatso. Ah, crap, I was trying to be careful, but you called me a fatso. Whatever, I was a fat. Phew, so that was you. To think that dude turned into Rudius. Wait, so you actually turned out quite hot, huh? He figured she'd be disgusted, but now she seemed kind of happy. I don't remember if it was right here. I think it's later on. As an indication that she's piecing everything together. Because she was thinking about this massive theory that she has that she talks about in the next chapter. So I'm kind of jumping ahead here. Bear with me. She's been kind of thinking about this guy that jumped in there. There was a chance that she knew that Rudius saved one of those two boys. Pulled him out of the direction of the truck. So there's an aspect here of kind of seeing Rudius as being a good person. That even back there, that fatso, he was still trying to protect them. He was trying to save their lives. And then the transportation happens, kind of puts the back of her head because, I mean, was it going to change? But being relieved here, it's almost like this idea of like, I'm kind of happy that that guy that tried to help us out, tried to save our lives, possibly saved or at least prevented one of us from getting transported, he turned out hot. That fatso got over here, turned out to be Rudius. He's looking good. He's enjoying life. That's a good thing. It's a very shallow way of thinking about things, but still, I'm just, that's why I think it kind of has that feeling there, that she's happy that, you know, dude got glowed up, doing better now. Pardon, Miss Nanahoshi, but, could you, well, keep it a secret from the others? I'd appreciate it. Why is that? I mean, I don't think anyone would stick with me if they knew. I don't think they all choose you for your looks, you know. Still, I have stuff I'd rather keep secret. Fair enough. Again, this is one of those moments where I know what he's doing here, but at the same time, do you think so little of your wives? Do you really think so little of your wives? Nanahoshi's like, everybody, I got an announcement to make. And he's like, Reese is like, well, what did she suddenly make an announcement for? Okay, what? All right, and everybody's woke up. Might as well see what she has to tell everybody. Reese used to be a fatso in his previous life. Big fat guy. Fat, round, disgusting looking tracksuit, nasty face, all hair everywhere, nasty looking dude, fatty. Like, then that night, everybody packed up and left the house. They couldn't deal with the idea of living with a past fatty. Nobody would care. They'd be more interested probably. They'd probably all think that Nanahoshi's nuts. But they would all probably be thinking, I mean, okay, that's a little weird story there, but okay, what's the difference? Doesn't make Rudius the current self now fatty. But again, yes, I understand what Rudius is thinking here. This is something that is, his past life is a disgusting stain in his mind. That's where all of his trauma is from. That's where all of his mistakes are from. That's where all of his all of his bad choices and everything that he just is trying to get away from, the whole reason for this new life and these new opportunities and this new path in his life, he wants to make sure that it has nothing to do with that past life. Stay away from it. It was a horrible choice. I don't like this. I don't want it to come back to haunt me. It's always haunting in his mind. I don't want them to know that I used to be a nasty person. They will look at me differently. I don't want them to see that old self. Every time he went to the man god, I have to see this old self again, and I hate it. It makes me sick seeing this self because this is what I want to leave behind, and it keeps coming back to me. It keeps haunting me. It won't let me go. That's why. Don't tell him, please. It still haunts him to this day. And now he's blurred off to Nanahoshi. And Nanahoshi's not going nowhere. Nanahoshi's not disgusted. That should be a sign right there, really. I think there should be... I honestly feel like this should be a wake-up call for Rudius. You have somebody in front of you that is nowhere near the levels of a bond with you as Sylphie, Roxy, Edis, Lara, Lucy, Aris, Zenith, Lilia, Aisha, anybody, Cliff, Zenoba. There's so many people that Rudius knows right now far more bonded with than Nanahoshi. And Nanahoshi's seen your past self. She 100% believes it because she's seen you. Everybody else is probably going to have a hard time believing it. Nanahoshi knows because she's seen it. And she's not disgusted. If she didn't get up and walk out that house saying, oh my gosh, fatty, nasty fatty, what's the fear? What's the fear in anybody leaving you because of it? It's weird. It's very interesting how much that is so hard for him to let go. Nanahoshi reseated herself on the sofa. He wasn't sure that she really got it, or if she was just worried he might not cooperate tomorrow if she pressed the issue. There is his reasoning right there. The only reason she doesn't call me fatty and run out the room is because if I don't help her, she doesn't get out of here. Stupid. Because unlike me, you're reincarnation. Yeah. No, she understands. She understands. That's right. He was a reincarnation. He couldn't go back to what he was before. He didn't intend to bury everything about his past, but he certainly wasn't going to talk about it if he didn't have to. Besides, his old self was embarrassing. I'm going to bring up that thing that I've talked about before. I don't know if I guess it's been a while. It is still sad to me how much he rejects his old self. And again, I understand the trauma aspect. What I mean is more the idea of not being willing to embrace what you once were. I think there is an important idea to somebody that if they used to be a criminal, they did something wrong. They wronged somebody. They were just a nasty person. They were abusive to somebody. They did wrong things. They just all the mistakes that your mistaken old self, like somebody that you look back on your old self, like 5 years ago, I used to be 5 years ago, I used to be the biggest asshole ever. I was so mean to this person. I was a hurtful person. I hurt people. I did wrong things. I think it is important to acknowledge that your old self was wrong. But I also think there's an idea that you don't need to be fully disgusted with your old self. There is almost an aspect of accepting what you once were rather than always rejecting it, because then that kind of opens the door to you both repeating it. And additionally, if you fall back into it, if you relapse, say you were, a druggie. If you relapse and you go back into that old stuff, I think it makes the fall hurt worse. And I think there is also an element of always acknowledging your older self so that you can always recall back to it for lessons that you've learned. But I think, like, especially for me personally, like, I mean, I'm not the skinniest person in the world, obviously, here. Can we all acknowledge this? I ain't the epitome of physical health here. I used to be extremely huge. Big. Massive. Lost a lot of weight at some point. And it really was all triggered because I had this big event with some families. And a lot of pictures were taken of me. Didn't like it. I changed myself. I'm not quite there yet, obviously. And I've kind of gotten to a plateau, obviously, as it seems. If you can tell if you watch my videos over the last couple of years. I was huge. And yes, it hurts to look back. It hurts to see those old photos. I've deleted a lot of them. I don't like them. When I see the pictures, I don't see that I'm disgusted with myself. Because I think that's a bad place to be at. Because I think that makes you hate yourself. And again, I think there is a hurt there that if you fall back into it, it's going to make you hate yourself more. That if I get that fat again, I'm nasty. I'm back to being nasty. I think there's an unhealthy amount of hating yourself and what you once were that, especially if you fall back into it, it puts you in a dark place. It will put you into a dark place. Have experience in it. It's not a good thing. It's not a healthy thing. Hating your old self is wrong. Hating what you did is good. Hating yourself is wrong. That's the important thing. Rudius needs to stop hating himself. He needs to hate what he did. Rudius needs to hate what he did and learn from it. And keep strictly to learning from those mistakes. And never, again, hating yourself. Sorry, some relatability there that kind of hits me. But again, I understand the idea. My old self was embarrassing. Again, you're not going to shake that. Again, like I said, seeing those photos, it's embarrassing. But I do like this connection here. The reason why he doesn't want to tell her, she picks up on it. She sits back on the sofa. Because unlike me, you're a reincarnation. When I read this part, I thought what they were going to get into right here is more of an idea of, hey, Nanahoshi, you know about that old fatso. Please don't tell anybody. She doesn't know anything about him. Key thing here, she doesn't know about him. She just knows what he looked like. This is right here is going purely based on physical appearance. Nanahoshi's seen him, and he was at fatso. And yes, didn't look too great. Again, not shaved, looking pretty rough, in sweats and stuff, kind of running across there with some sandals on. Dude, not looking too good. Rudius says, please don't tell them. Please keep it a secret. Okay, she sits down. I guess because unlike me, you're a reincarnation. I thought the reason for this whole segment right here is this is acknowledging, at least from Nanahoshi's perspective, for sure, in Rudius' perspective right here, he's getting into the idea of trying to hide from that. I don't want to get into that. I don't want my family to know about that. It was an embarrassing thing for me. But I think for Nanahoshi's side right here, which is not getting into because we're not in her mind, I think what Nanahoshi right here is connecting is that, unlike me, you're a reincarnation, and that's why you don't want them to know. Because Rudius can't go back. If he messes up things here, he can't go back. And that's kind of an interesting thing that I've never really thought about. Even when Nanahoshi was offering to Rudius, you don't want to be in this world, do you? You want to go back to the other world just like me. Could Rudius do that? That's a massive question mark that I've never thought about before. Nanahoshi might be able to go back because she has a body to go back. Can Rudius go back? And Nanahoshi will be away from this world that's rejecting her because she doesn't have mana. What if the opposite is true for Rudius if he goes back to our world? Will the mana in his body, because his body is of this world with mana in it, if he goes back to our world, will he get a similar effect where he'll die because he has mana and he can't possibly get rid of it or something? That's a good question mark. And yes, it could be the aspect of her saying, unlike me, you're reincarnation. So you've been born here. So you have an identity here, and people don't know that you've been transported to this world. You're of this world. You're not a foreign entity here that everybody knows you're not from this world. Well, not that everybody knows that. No, she's from another world. Barely anybody knows. That's right. He was a reincarnation. He couldn't go back to what he was before. He didn't intend to bury everything about his past, but he certainly wasn't going to talk about it if he didn't have to. Besides, his old self was embarrassing. Being that piece of crap in the past was what made him the person he was today. But that didn't make him proud of that old self. Thank you. Thank you. That's part of it right there. He gets part of it. He gets part of it. Acknowledge it because you can learn from it. Don't be disgusted by your old self. Be disgusted by what you did and learn from it. Got it. I'll keep it to myself. Thanks. Please do. That reminded him of one more thing about his old life. Oh, it's already hitting me. It's already hitting me. It's already hitting me. We're not to it yet, Andrew. Stop. Wait. That's right. I almost forgot. What is it? Because you know my secret identity. Well, not because of that. But anyways, I'd like you to deliver this to my family. Oh, my gosh. Oh, this is so huge. I got so emotional when I read this. It's got... so hits me so freaking hard, dude. Stop! Let's get to the point first, Andrew. Let's talk about it first, Andrew. This kind of reminds me of back when Norn being shut in segment towards the end there. Rhea's saying that if he could talk to his brother again, he'd thank him. God damn, it's hit me so hard already. It's already hit me so hard. Even that point right there was so freaking powerful. The idea of if I could go back there, I would so love to tell my brother, thank you so much for being there. I just never knew. I never realized because I was such a nasty person. And now he wants to do it for the whole entire family. It's gotten there. Like back there, he was acknowledging. Talk, Andrew. Like back there, he was just acknowledging his brother. And yes, I mean, when the whole thing happened with Paul, he wished that he could have acknowledged, he could do the same for his parents. But now he's like the entire family. He's grown. Reese has grown so freaking much. When the anime adaptation did Norn's episode, I made a clip on that I posted out for everybody. That's such a good contrast. It's the shot in episode 2 of the first season where Reese is first kicked out of that room. And it was contrasting that moment of the brother storming in there, kicking the crap out of him, kicking him out of the house, throwing that curve, and that door slamming on him. And it contrasts it to this point where Rudius is going, that same guy that kicked him out of that house, opened that same door to come in there and say, Rudius, I want to save you. Brother, come out of there. Yes, his name wasn't Rudius, but brother, come on out. He's trying to save him right there. He's trying so hard to help him. Oh, this shit's so good. Anyways, let's actually get in this moment. Let's actually read this. I'd like you to deliver this to my family in my old world. Reus placed a single envelope on the table. The somewhat bulky letter contained everything he had to say to his siblings. It had been 20 years since he'd come here. He'd been through a lot. He felt like he could... Let's get my head, I'm contrasting the two sides. He felt like he could hold his head high. I can't read this. Why? I wasn't this bad when I read it. Now if I read it out loud, it's killing me. Why is it killing me so bad? I'm going to have to take a break. Pull it together, Andrew. He felt like he could hold his head high and say he was different from what he was then. Emphasis on different, mind you. He wouldn't call himself respectable by any means. He felt like he could hold his head high and say that he was different. I'm different from then. Not that I'm great. Not that I'm respectable. Not saying I'm an amazing person. Just that I'm different. I've changed. Simply, he's changed. He's not calling himself an honorable man. I have a family now. I am so much better now. I'm doing good. I am so grown up. Again, earlier, he doesn't feel like that makes him an adult. I have all these children. I have these wives. I have a house. I have a job. I've protected people, saved people. Again, all these things that I don't think he's really putting at like some great honor. Like, this is me. I'm so great. No, when he looks at his wives, he says, they love me. I'm so blessed that they love me. I have kids that love me. I'm so blessed to have them. Orsted's protecting me. I have great friends. We see you have these wives. You have these children. You have a house. You have a job. You have Orsted's your buddy. You have Betelgeuse as your buddy. You have some great friends. Rhesus says these people, for some reason, are a blessing to me. Not an achievement by me, but a blessing to me. Oh my gosh, a second. I'm definitely not getting to chapter 6. Fuck. I honestly forgot that this was in this chapter. I thought this was in the next chapter. Me up bad. He wouldn't call himself respectable by any means. He packed the letter with apologies for his mistakes, memories of times they shared, what he was doing now, and more. Apologies. What would be the changing point? What would be the changing point? To go out of his way to tell them, I'm sorry. What would be the changing point? I think it's everything. Unfortunately, we haven't got a full, clear picture of all of his siblings. We get a really good example of the one brother trying to pull him out of his room when he was shut in And that whole experience with Norn is obviously probably would trigger him to want to say sorry to him. He even says at the end of that chapter when everything's resolved. But I would imagine like every single thing that he's kind of gone through, each thing sort of adds up. I was nasty to them. I was terrible to them. And right here, he's finally able to say, not just in his own head, sorry, bro. Wish I could tell you. Now he's saying every single one of them, I'm apologizing for my mistakes. I was wrong. I was a nasty, nasty person. And you guys dealt with so much. I'm so sorry. And here's all these memories that we shared. I guess to kind of solidify that. Probably to reminisce there as well. Additionally, what I'm doing now. It might come off as gibberish if Nanahoshi landed right in Japan after less than a day had passed in that world, though. That's the question mark I had when I'm reading this. Let's do multiple scenarios here. If Nanahoshi pops back over there and 20 years has passed, or possibly just the time period that Nanahoshi's been in this world, would they accept those letters without thinking that she's crazy? Like if Nanahoshi just pops to their doorstep and it's within the same day that Rudius got hit by the truck, oh, here's this letter, he wanted me to give it to you, they're going to open that up and go, what the hell? The guy that we just kicked out of the house? What fanfic crap was he writing? It'd probably flip him out. But they could possibly still get in there. There's apologies. And it could be so well wrote out that might click something in their mind, but they'd probably think he's nuts. Because again, if he somehow wrote this entire letter within 24 hours that we just had to kick him out when he was looking at what is on that screen at the time and bashing in his computer and literally physically having to get him out of the house after he just missed their parents' funeral, I think they would tear it up and throw it away. But at least Rudius tried. At least he tried. Cut forward. Maybe she comes back and it's been 10 years have passed, 15 years have passed. Yeah, it kind of gives an indication where he's been, but would they not know that he's dead? They should know that again, all indications based on the anime anyways, is that they hauled him into an ambulance, took him to the hospital, he died. The novel really only gives us a sense that, yes, he was crushed by the truck, and you assume that his spirit left his body and came to this world. His body might not be at the old world, but if it is, then they know that he died. But maybe Rudius doesn't know that. Rudius maybe thinks that maybe his body's gone. Maybe they don't know that I'm dead. We'd assume based on the anime that everybody knows that he's dead, but possibly that the family never knows. And then, maybe if some time has passed, I think they would be able to accept this letter a little better. But it's super cool, though. It's just super cool. No matter trying to think about it. And again, whether they accept it or not doesn't matter. He's trying. He's trying to at least say, I'm sorry. I think it's not so much that they receive something that will, no matter what letter they get there, and no matter what he writes in that letter, they may never accept it. But the point here is that Rudius is taking the step to say, I am sorry. I messed up. I now realize how much you tried. I realize now how much I harmed you guys. I now realize why you were so mad at me when I didn't show up at the parents' funeral. Because I lost somebody again, and I realized what I lost there now. And I regret massively that I wasn't there. I regret not seeing their faces. He said that. What was on their face when they were lying there? All that kind of stuff. All those question marks comes to his head. It might come off as gibberish if Nanahoshi landed right in Japan after less than a day had passed in that world, though. He could live with that. The letter wasn't just for them. It was also for Rudius. What he needed to say. It's like, put words to it. Put it to words. Get it out. Get it off your chest. You have to say it. Don't keep it locked up inside. And again, don't have that regret that you were never able to say something. This could be a massive relief for him to finally have that come off his chest. Similar to when he first told Roxy about his previous life. He said it felt like he was just it was oozing out. Finally got to tell somebody. It finally got off my chest. Understood. She lovingly placed it into her pocket. I'll make sure it gets there. Again, that's like a huge thing too, that she'd have to go out of her way to do this for him. Again, not knowing when she's going to be there, if she can find them, track them down. Thanks, I'm counting on you. So huge. There's no guarantee that she'd teleport to Japan, or make it back to Japan after teleporting. The journey could take years. His brothers could have moved for all they knew and be impossible to find. She nodded, despite those uncertainties. Yeah. It's one of those moments of like, yeah, in Nanahoshi's mind right here, finally I can do something for you. Please. Nanahoshi's probably been fighting for the longest time to find something to do for you because you've done so much for her. Finally I can do something for you? Yes. Now, that was technically probably a lot of the reason why she helped him with Orsted. I hate this because Orsted's helped me out so much, but you've done so much for me, so I guess I'm going to have to. He then handed her another, far thinner letter. Also this, just in case years have passed in that world, and if you have nowhere to go and nobody to rely on, I wrote this letter to tell my old brothers to look after you, even if it's just for a little bit. She accepted it with shaky hands. But I couldn't. Well, hey, I was nothing but a nuisance over there. So they might just refuse you outright. But, you know. He's like, I made this in case you get there and you have nowhere to go. They might help you out. But I'm kind of a nuisance, so they're probably going to reject you anyways. You were a nuisance? Yep. A jobless leech. Like, he might as well. He's like, whatever. Might as well. Like he says right here, yes. She might as well hear it from him. If she did meet them, they'd let her know. She looked deep into Bruce's face, as if she were expecting it for signs of a loser. Kind of hard to believe that. But that is interesting to kind of note there, that he's doing this because, yeah, there's a chance that when you get there, like so many years have passed, she might not be able to find her family. What if something has happened to her family? Like if she even teleports straight to Japan, and she's right in the middle of the, Japan and easy access transportation, able to get home within minutes. What if time has passed? What if her family's gone? What if her family's dead? What if she has nobody to return to? At least given an option right here. But yeah, kind of hard to believe that. Yeah, it would be hard to tell the difference. Maybe that disbelief was proof of just how hard he'd worked. Wasn't that a happy thought? It is. It is very much so. Well, if you're offering, I'd be honored to accept. I can't thank you enough for everything you've done. She cradled the letter to her chest and bowed her head. She'd be returning home tomorrow. The experiments had gone perfectly. There wasn't the slightest error in the magic circle. But even still, an anxiety coiled around Maurice's insides, and he couldn't shake it. Finally! Finally! When I was reading this, I finally went, finally! We're finally going to address the elephant in the room. Finally! Everybody acting like this doesn't exist. They'd made every possible preparation, every calculation. Nanahoshi seemed confident. Not a soul thought it would fail. There was one last cause for concern. One that Rudius had no intention of spreading further by daring to name aloud. One that, in her heart, Nanahoshi knew herself. One that, if she did know, she also wouldn't speak about. I mean, she does know. Maybe she already had it under control. So Rudius left it at that. Tomorrow, let's get you home. Yeah, if your concerns were strong enough, everything else is just details. And that is chapter 5. Holy crap, I did not think I would actually take that long in this chapter. And again, part of it is because for some reason I thought this last part was in chapter 6. So yeah, it kind of carried over. Let me double check my record. I think we're going to end up going for a single chapter Mushoku Monday. Yeah, I'm going to stop there. I'm going to call it there. Again, I just know that chapter 6 is going to be extremely long and so much stuff to really dig into. It's just a very, very juicy chapter. I honestly totally forgot how much I was going to be digging into for chapter 5. So it's really cool that I got this much stuff out of it. It's always great when I get to the recording segment and things start getting really crazy. But yes, additionally, technically, I'm right now kind of emotionally exhausted after that letter. I didn't know that was going to hit me that hard. Honestly, when I was reading it, it was emotional. But I think it's the moment that I started putting it to word and really start to analyze it for Mushoku Monday. Sometimes a lot more connection happens. I think there's something to be said about doing these Mushoku Mondays that it suddenly puts it into perspective for me sometimes more than I originally had. Really putting myself in the shoes of Rudius and really getting emotional. And it just, like, it was almost like the whole thing was Zenith. The whole getting into her memories where it's like, God, can I even read this? Am I going to be able to get these words out? Super good stuff. What a fantastic chapter. And again, I think chapter 6 is going to be even more juicy. What a fantastic volume so far. I'm loving it. I'm so happy about this volume. This is unless something goes downhill from here, this volume is going to turn out to be a S tier volume. I'm loving it so far. Just so much stuff here. So much self-reflection, so much into the world and the building and everything. It's just great. I love it. Love it. Anyways, thank you guys so much for dropping by for the premiere. Hey, chat. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you guys enjoyed this Mushoku Monday. Hope you guys have a great rest of your Monday. Thank you so much for supporting the channel, being here, being a part of this experience. It means so much to me. You guys are just so freaking amazing. I love it. And yes, as per usual, greatly appreciate everybody that supports channel monetarily through Patreon, tips, links, super thanks, memberships. Your guys' support makes this happen. It keeps the lights on. Without you guys, none of this would happen. And I greatly appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. But yes, until the next Mushoku Monday and Nanahoshi's fate, y'all take care. That night, Rias talked to Nanahoshi. The house was quiet, and everyone was sound asleep. They sat face to face in the living room, only lit by the fireplace and sipping wine. They kept it light. Pedagoog's hobbies, how devoted Savaro was, stuff like that. Lucy warmed up to Nanahoshi quickly. Dinner drew to a close, but it'd be a brutal journey. But it would still be a brutal journey. Do wop wop, do wop wop.